I could not believe the length of the line of cars waiting at the stop sign there in front of the, what's the white tower, the White Columns building, to turn into or to go down into Okay, ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Wait, wait for him to come in. It takes a bit.
Great, thank you. All right, welcome everybody. This is the Beach Advisory Committee meeting. And I'm going to first take the roll call to establish our quorum. John Dykstra.
Here.
Joanne Guston.
Present.
Jen Wasserman.
Here.
Carol Sherman.
Here.
Paul Hogan.
Here.
Barry Engel.
Here.
Thank you. And Ed Hutchins? Not here, looks like. I have not heard from him whether he was going to be able to attend tonight or not. So we do in fact have a quorum. Let's proceed with the first agenda item, which was approval of the June 17th meeting minutes. We don't yet have the June 29th, the meeting where we dealt with the one issue. So anybody have any comments or corrections that haven't already been passed in? All right, anybody want to make a motion to approve?
I make a motion with the one amendment that someone put in?
I think that was me, which was a pretty low in the grass one, but thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. All right, John,
Aye.
Joanne,
Yes.
Jen.
Aye.
Carol.
Yeah.
Paul,
Yes.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So it's approved unanimously. All right, the next item is our customary opening up for public comments on items not on the agenda, but I am going to exercise my prerogative, maybe with or without my hat as chair, to make a public comment right here. Many of you may be aware of, some of you may not be, of a couple of incidences of vandalism that have occurred recently here at the beach that I want to speak to very briefly. The first concerns the dog ordinance. Obviously, that was adopted on June 8th, and less than about a week later, the new summer rules would have come into effect. Since it was going to take a little bit of time to get the information out about the new rules in the form of the stickers that would amend those big welcoming signs. And we felt it was important to get the information out so that people would know, number one, they had more time on the beach with their dogs, but that they had to be on leash. So Carol created a really fun, I don't know if you can see it from this sign, summarizing briefly the new ordinance for the summer months. And we got it laminated, we got it put on stakes, and I can personally attest that my husband and I went around to every single one of the beach entrances and hammered that sign right at the entrance, at the start of the entrance to the beach. And the town was behind this because they wanted to get the information out as quickly as possible too. So they were definitely in place shortly after the 15th. And then it came to my attention, I noticed that the Proctor Street entrance sign was missing. That's where we generally enter the beach. And then Carol mentioned to me that the sign at the west end of the beach was also missing. So I did a survey, went up and down all the entrances and found that every single one of those signs had been removed by somebody. Not a particularly nice thing to do. I don't know if somebody was simply trying to make the dog ordinance changes go away. That's obviously not the case. But that's one act of vandalism. But the other that I find even more despicable is just became known in the last couple of days. If you saw the posting on the Friends of Goose Rocks Beach Facebook page, somebody apparently took it upon themselves to vandalize the handicapped access wheelchair that's available at the end of Edgewood and is available free there for anybody in the community, visitor, renter, resident, who has somebody who might need to use that in order to have a mobility issue and might need to use that wheelchair in order to enjoy our beautiful beach. I don't know how quickly it'll be back in operation. Paul, I think you're a keeper of the key. Do you know anything about that?
It's been partially repaired, but one tire was slashed, and it was donated to the Health Council, and they funded last year when a tire got blown. So they have to decide whether they want to spend the money again.
So again, to me, I can't see any reason why anybody wants to do this. This is purely an act of vandalism. And I'm going to sit here and say that this is not the community I've known and loved for 35 years. And I think most of us who are watching this, I hope you feel the same way. I hope this isn't the beginning of other acts of vandalism, but I would ask you if anybody knows in any way, shape, or form of how either of these incidents happened, please contact the Kennebunkport Police Department. And if you see anything that looks like vandalism happening in the future, again, this is not an issue that I think we've had to deal with for the most part, at least not that I've been aware of. And I'm sorry to think that this community has changed. I'd like to think it's not. So please, community, get together behind this. John.
Yeah, Paul, you mentioned this was a group who provided the wheelchair. I'm wondering if we couldn't suggest to the town that the Goose Rocks Beach Reserve Fund ought to be funding the access to that chair. I mean, I can't think of anything that could be more important for our committee to suggest to the town in terms of allowing people to enjoy and have access to the beach.
Well, the Health Council, it was donated to me, and I donated it to the Health Council, and they have
Well, who is the Health Council? I'm sorry, I don't know who that is.
It's part of the town.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good, done. Sorry, I didn't know. I thought it was a private.
And they have people make donations to them.
Marvelous. Disregard.
And there is a second one. I tried to find out. I sent an email to the rec department. I understand there's a second one that was donated by the chamber or by somebody, and it's stored at the Tides, and it's supposed to be some sort of an online reservation system, and they charge for it, but at least it's available. I tried to find it on their website. I could not find it on the rec department's page. They do have a way to pay for things online. And I sent them an email, but I haven't gotten a response. I thought if the other one was available immediately, we could share the information with people.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds like good information to get out, though. Again, if once we know that it is available again, or something will be available, maybe make sure we get that information out so that people don't, lose the opportunity to be on the beach. Put it on the Facebook page or whatever. Okay.
And thanks to Greg Burns for undertaking to try to repair it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Greg. All right, then I'm opening it up. Does anybody else, David, anybody else saying that they would like to comment from the community? I'm having trouble hearing there. Is anybody else?
Susan's coming out.
Oh, okay.
Susan, you're muted. Still muted.
How about now?
You're good.
Okay. Just to further the discussion about
Susan,
vandalism.
let me just briefly, could you quickly identify yourself and maybe where you are staying?
I'm sorry. I know that's the procedure. My name is Susan Hanlon. I live at 7 Abbey Road, out by the fire station.
Yep.
And thank you.
Yep.
My comment is to further the discussion and to get it out there about vandalism and things like that. I was talking with a friend of mine who is an artist, local artist, and sells some of her items at the general store, the gift shop upstairs. She was at the gift shop on Saturday, and I saw her later in the morning on Saturday, and she told me that some of her items have been stolen from the gift shop. The workers at the gift shop have noticed that the inventory went down drastically. And so now this poor artist is out some of her business. The gift shop has moved her items closer to the behind the counter. So clearly there's things happening here at the beach that aren't good. So I just passed that along as more information about
Yeah.
the neighborhood, I guess. And it's sad to hear these things.
Very sad.
And another quick question, if I could, I don't want to take a lot of time. Is there a reason why the meeting minutes for the advisory board are not published through the town? I went back to try to read the minutes from past meetings, and they're not up there. It goes back to 2020. Thank you.
All right. Carol, do you want to address that, or do you want me to take it?
It's a very good point, Susan, and we are working on it, is all I can tell you.
Okay.
We had a change from Arlene to Tracy, from Kate to me, and you are absolutely correct. They should be up there, and I'm trying as fast as I can to get them up there, but taking my place in line of priorities of things that the town has to do. So you're right.
They will be.
They will
Well,
be.
Thank you very much. And I know it's a tough job because I'm a secretary on a board as well. And it's a daunting task. So
Yeah.
thank you. I'm going to mute myself now.
Okay. Anybody else, Dave?
Hi, Bill Casey, Cottage 9 at the resort at Goose Rocks. And just wanted to say, again, thanks to Greg for what he did to try to repair the chair. And if there's a need for funds, I'm sure many of us would be glad to donate if you put out an email or something that you need the funds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the kind of community I think we are, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
My suggestion is, if anybody's listening, to make a contribution to the Health Council. That would go to, who's the treasurer?
Don't
If you
know.
email us, what's our email? GRB.
RB advisory at Gmail
Committee
committees.
at kennebunkportme.gov.
Right.
We'll
So-
tell you where it goes.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bill. And somebody else, Dave?
Jen's got her hand up.
Jen has a hand.
Oh, sorry, Jen.
I'm just curious, apropos of wheelchair, the free wheelchair, how much is it used? I mean, would it be helpful to have two?
Last year, it was not used at all, really. Once we got a repair, and it was used sparingly because there just weren't many guests.
Right.
The families weren't getting together.
Right.
And three of us have keys, so I don't know how many times it's been taken out. I've only gotten one phone call this year.
Oh, but I didn't realize it was, so it is secured with a key and then
Oh,
folks
sure.
call you to get access?
Yep.
Got it.
There's a sign on it,
Perfect.
and we
Okay. Great. Is there somebody out there in the community, Dave? Oh, and Kai Leffler, was that?
yes.
I have a couple of things.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, you should identify yourself, please, even though we all know you.
Bill Leffler on Proctor Avenue,
Mm-hmm.
the first street that Kate saw the sign taken down.
Right.
Number of things. One, in the past years, there have been 2 trash barrels at each entry. There's only one this year, and they get terribly filled up and overflowing. I think there ought to be a second one, especially with the pizza cartons that get stuffed in there.
Okay.
Okay. That's a good
Secondly,
point.
as I drive around on Kings Highway, I see a number of cars with no parking stickers and no tickets on the front windshield. I'm wondering if they're not giving tickets this year. And thirdly,
As far as I know, they're giving them, but we'll
I have yet to see any.
okay.
I've seen a fair amount.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the wrong cars. Thirdly, I'm wondering, this year we have seen more dogs at the beach than I can recollect over many years. I'm wondering that dogs needs licensing. I'm wondering if the town has any way of controlling the number of dogs in some way with licenses so that it identify. The other day, Kai read that the people in Tel Aviv are being fined if their dog leaves poop on the ground and they don't pick it up. I don't know how we're doing here at the beach in that respect, but if there are people who fail to pick up the dog poop, they ought to be held responsible. And I'm wondering how it might be done.
Well, part of it, Bill, is being there at the time, such as, I mean, the CSOs certainly keep an eye out for something like that, because the requirement that you clean up after your dog has been in the dog ordinance from time immemorial. Whether people follow it, whether the CSOs or whoever is patrolling the beach, otherwise it's pretty hard to figure out who did something and left it behind, but it is required to clean up. And as far as licensing goes, I don't think there's any way we can manage that. For one thing, a dog's license is given in general by the town in which it lives, and we have a lot of visitors here who bring their dogs from elsewhere. So that's not something that the town has any part of that process. But I agree that it would be lovely if we could assure that all dogs that are on the beach are licensed, because for one thing, that generally requires that you have produced evidence to wherever jurisdiction is licensing your dog, that your dog is fully vaccinated, or at least vaccinated for rabies. So.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, anybody else, Dave?
John Downey.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. Yes. Hi, Kate. You remember me?
I sure do.
Thank you. So it's John Downey, and we live here, resident at 16 Prescott Drive. So almost a 30-year renter prior to that. So long-term love, and to the point where I moved my life here. So thank you guys for making it what it was and what it is. So my comments aren't aimed at the 95% that I think is really tremendous people. One thing, I'm just going to go back to the handicap ramp piece, and that is there are people also using it as their personal floor mats with shoes and sandals and gear that they're leaving there, so that if somebody ever did want to use it, they'd have a hard time accessing it due to those personal things. The other thing is, Kate and I, you've talked about this, but a couple of things. Kate referred to it as noise pollution. I refer to it as music pollution. I'm probably showing my age here, but me and several homeowners, as well as I'm sure renters, have had to actually move locations on the beach because we're at the crossfire between somebody's Spotify music selection and somebody's iTunes. You could listen to 3 different formats from 50 to 100 yards away sometimes. And, again, 30 years history says, I love kids, and I'd rather hear a crying baby and the waves than somebody's personal music selection. So my comments are just made in respect of to the term respect. I think we need to respect each other out there. And if you want to listen to music, and how we do this, I don't think there's a town ordinance, but personal listening devices have to be considered because of the technology used in speakers today is far different from what it was 20 years ago. And
5
so
years ago, I agree.
I'm going to tell you, it is unnerving to have to pick up a couple of chairs, a book, and move 20 yards away because I don't want to hear Eminem, and I don't want to hear the Beatles or Fleetwood Mac, some of my favorites. But I want to hear the waves and kids yelling and footballs being thrown. Sounds old-fashioned, but I'm
Yeah.
sticking to it. The only other comment I'd like to be addressed is the leaving of chairs, tents, tent frames, volleyball frames and nets, and my wife said, we'll pick stuff out. We go for a walk every day, as some of you know.
Mhm.
And she always heads to the barrels at the end of the path with a load of trash. And yesterday was old beat up volleyball net with white poles that were just left on the beach. And there's a couple of framed tents that renters leave so that they don't have to bring the frame the next day. So the music is number one to me. The things left on the beach. I think it's horrendous what you guys said about the handicap damage to the wheelchair. And Kate, for respect, those signs, there was a message to them, and I think you should have had twice as many, quite frankly, because there was that much concern about it.
Yeah.
So I just want those things noted, and I'll be happy to work on behalf of any of those items through whatever communications I need to, but I ask for your help.
Understood, John. And I agree with you on the issues that you've raised. I don't know that we have an easy solution, but we keep trying to work on it.
Yeah, there are just beaches that we've all visited in our past that we would like GRB not to turn into.
Mhm.
It's what everybody's leaving to come here, and now they're getting what they're leaving. So
Yeah.
I'm open to suggestions. Are there any on the team that I'm talking to right now as to how to approach that?
In terms of things left on the beach, in theory, we do have an ordinance that you can't leave personal items, beach equipment on the beach. And I believe that the CSOs are in charge of tagging that or noting that. I'll have to check more and see what they're seeing, what they're finding, how they're handling it. The noise pollution, I do want to try and talk with the town manager, because I think at one point I raised the question of whether that could be included in the, some reference that could be included in the new beach brochure as it was being drafted. My understanding was, she said, we don't actually have a noise ordinance at this point, so I'm going to do some more research on it.
Well, we don't have one that applies to the beach. The town has a general one, but we don't have one that says you can't have boom boxes or nothing louder than some decibel.
Well, I think it's an issue, unfortunately, as things come forward. I mean, a lot of people think, and I know I and other members on this committee have been accused of, being regulation happy, and that's not the case at all. But I think we're presented with a situation where the beach is changing. And so we can only work with what's presented to us and try and do our best to keep it something that everybody can live with. And that's what we're trying to find. So I don't have an easy answer for you right now, John, but I appreciate it. I mean, I don't spend that much time sitting on the beach or something like that, but I was down there, and I did see, as I was taking my dogs on to walk late in the day, that there was still noise going on, somebody with his boombox.
Could it be something that is, again, we cannot get sign crazy, but could it be something that is recommended by the Beach Advisory Committee, noted as to where it's coming from? Is there a note to just respect everyone and keep your noise level down? Is, again, I know there has to be a source for that sign. But as you know, Kate, I had a couple up, and I had a boombox, and I had a diagonal line, and you said, take it down, Downey. And I took it down.
And you were very kind to cooperate. I
I
appreciate
didn't
it.
want to. I didn't, but I did. So I'm wondering if it could be a recommendation sign by the Beach Advisory Commission to respect neighbors and keep the volume down. And if it's just something that you could point to someone and say, did you see the sign?
Are there towns that ban them, boom boxes?
There are. I don't know about the other.
Let's let Jen say something. She's been
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to politely come in.
Sorry, Jen.
Oh,
Sorry,
no,
Jen.
no, it's fine. I don't have anything massive to add. I was just a couple things, with the community service officers, I don't know how hard it is for them with all like beach chairs for them to decide, did somebody leave, if it's in front of someone's home, is this the beachfront owner's property or not? So it becomes difficult probably for them to tell. I mean, so that's one thing. I mean, I agree. We definitely don't want things left. You know, at the end of Jeffrey's, my side traditionally has not had stuff on the, my neighbor opposite me had last year used to have 30 kayaks left there. I noticed yesterday there were 9, and I don't know if they happen to belong to the people who are perhaps renting that house, or if they, you know, are people leaving them. But it's hard, you know, it's hard to police. And then as for the music, I also have experienced that at the end of Jeffrey's Way. There's a lot of competing music, and I don't know if it's a generational thing. If this is sort of, you know, if this is what's going on, but I don't have a great solution. I think it's true. One could put up a sign sort of similar, another sign, similar to the drone one. You know, we suggest consideration, but yeah, no, I last year when it was crowded, and even though last year wasn't as crowded, I remember being quite irritated by having someone else's music taste thrust upon me when I was on the beach.
Thank you.
Maybe a solution is to bring down a competing boombox and play classical back at them.
Kate, I've thought of that, and my wife has warned against it.
Trust me, that's not a solution. Very old.
No.
Yeah, I was just thinking that just with so many people today having AirPods and being able to listen to music, but not be bothering everybody else, perhaps we go down that path and say, you know, no boom boxes, which are going to annoy and bother everybody, but you can still listen to music. You just have to do it in a way that doesn't affect other people.
You got to use your Bluetooth. To me, no open air boom boxes, no open air music. That's, you know, the technology is also brought into everybody's earphones. So, you know, but I don't know. You just say regulations, but.
I know.
Yeah.
John, I appreciate that. Did you have anything else? Or, I mean, I know we don't have a resolution, but it certainly started some good thinking and talking, and I don't think that certainly won't end there.
No, just thanks for letting me air that out. Again, it's, you know, 95%, I think, just respect the heck out of the beach. And the term respect somehow, I almost want on every sign we ever put up, just respect is, the R in Goose Rock should be for respect too, right?
Right. Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Hi, this is Bill Van Benthuizen, 23 Winter Harbor Road. Thanks for letting me talk. Just a couple of things I wanted to touch on regarding the dog signs. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we had gone on the beach and the signs were there at the entry pathways, and they were very low. And I don't know if people don't see them or whatever, but we were on the beach around noon on that Sunday, and there were 2 dogs on the beach with their families on the beach within earshot of where we were set up. And the CSOs passed by several times without even taking notice. I had to go and make mention to them that, hey, do you see these dogs here? Mm-hmm. And they finally went and addressed the issue. My question is regarding the CSOs. They seem to hug the waterline when they walk the beach for the most part, and not very close to where people are really camped out along the, you know, the upper beach areas. So I didn't know if there was some way to get the CSOs to walk closer to the activities that are going on, to really have a closer eye on things such as dogs on the beach at the wrong time of the day. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing. And just to respond to Bill Leffler's comment about the parking stickers that he's not seeing in the cars, I don't know if he's aware that the tickets that are issued for the parking from the machines are something that folks leave on their dashboard, so not attached to their rear windows. So that could be why he's not seeing them. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks for all your efforts, and keep going.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay.
Sam Corby on Wildwood Avenue. What kind of recourse do the CSOs have? I mean, I wonder about the rules that get made and how they get monitored. It seems to me that they have very little they can do. I once asked them about the kayaks and they said they really couldn't do much about them except to leave a ticket, leave a warning. But in case of the dogs and some of these other things that they actually see, what can they do to remedy the situation?
Well, and my understanding is that the CSOs, certainly they do have authorization to issue parking tickets. And if you notice, sometimes you'll see them, on one of their passes, they're working more on Kings Highway than on the beach. On the beach, I think the police department in general likes to try to deal with apparent violations in an educative way first, rather than a heavy-handed way. And I think that that's one of the primary missions for the CSOs, to observe things, to notice things, and to talk to people if they're seeing things that are violating any of the prohibitions on the beach or the dog ordinance or something like that. I still do think that if they find resistance and it's something that's an important violation, I think there were recourses to contact the police and get a police officer over there to deal with the issue.
That's what I thought. Thank you. I just wanted some clarification of that.
I mean, the police department can't be there, police officers themselves.
No, I know they can't.
A limited number, and so the CSOs were a great solution to try to establish some level of, if you will, police presence on the beach. And they're also there to, let people ask them questions or share information. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Thank you for all the public comments and the input. Okay, so let's move on to, we've got a fair amount still to cover, to an update on the animal control ordinance. Obviously, I spoke to the signs. The ordinance is still in place despite the fact of the signs disappearing. It has made the enforcement, so to speak, by the police department a little more difficult, simply because people didn't necessarily know the rules. But that's improving, and I think, John, correct me, do we have the new stickers actually on there now?
Yes.
Indeed, yeah.
They look great.
So thank you for getting that done. That's a big help. So we have the information out there. I did, I got some feedback from somebody who was chatting with one of the CSOs, and I found this an interesting commentary, that the CSO commented that when he is patrolling the beach and sees a dog like off leash or something or other, he's actually found it's the visitors who are very cooperative about it. If they're, doing something that's not in accordance with the rules, and they counsel, go up and explain, everybody he's talked to that's from away has been very helpful about, cooperating without any problem. Where he sees the difficulty is in people who live here. That's where he's getting more pushback. So again, I'm sorry. I know a lot of people, this was a very important issue to them and an emotional issue. And certainly we had quite a turnout to vote on that issue. But what we have is what was adopted by the majority of the people that were voting. So otherwise, it's underway. So far, so good. And that's about all I have to say on the dog ordinance, unless somebody else has something they'd like to add in. Okay, no public comment, Dave? Good. All right, so let's move on to an update on the campfires. On the beach campfires, and as of Sunday, we now have a certain number of beach campfires permitted. John and I both attended the Board of Selectmen meeting on the 8th, and John did his usual great presentation, and the Board of Selectmen decided to adopt our recommendations, the motions that we had sent forward, under the conditions we had sent forward, with the one added proviso that this is essentially sort of a trial period, and they want us to revisit the issue in the fall to see how this summer goes. And with that, let me turn it over to John, because I think you've got more detail and you've worked with the police department on that very well done beach fire permit.
Thank you, Kay. As Kate mentioned, we had the public meeting, and what was clear from the public meeting was that folks wanted to have beach fires continue. What was also mentioned is there were several concerns that were raised. I could summarize them as being the debris that was left on the beach, that burning embers were still in holes. The holes weren't filled sometimes. There was just a lot of stuff that was left around. There was also a concern about smoke around Proctor Avenue area, that there was a high concentration of smoke. And when we looked at that, I mean, clearly all the fires used to be gathered right by Proctor Avenue. So that was a legitimate concern. Then there was also the concern of fire hazard. And what I'll do is, I'm sorry, Dave, I didn't warn you. Can you allow me just to share my screen really quickly? Just want to put up one slide. Thank you, sir. So what I just want to do is just quickly, so is that coming through okay?
Yep.
So these were the changes that were made. This is the change to what was the existing fire permits as we knew them in the past years. Basically, we've reduced it to 6 fires. That's 6 from what was 10, 3 in the East End where anyone can go get a permit, and then 3 along the beachfront owners for them to be able to have permits. So 6 per night. The fires must be in a metal container, and this was one of the biggest changes we've made. But it was made for 2 reasons. One, it helps keep the debris off the beach, so things are carried out in the metal container. It cannot be dumped. It needs to be taken off. It also provides an excellent element of safety for the containment of the fire. We've also raised a permit fee, and again, this is a deposit. This isn't a fee, it's a deposit of $50 to $250. The situation we felt is that $50 just wasn't enough to have people think twice about whether they really wanted to follow the rules or not. And $250, we're hoping, will make people understand that they need to follow the rules to get their money back. Fires must be 20 feet from any dune grass or the seawall, 100 feet from any posted nesting areas. There's a water-filled bucket that is to remain with the fire at all times. And the permittee must sign to state that they understand that they are held liable for suppression costs and any damage for that fire to escape. So these were elements that are added to the permit, but the permits are there, and we're hoping folks would understand that these kinds of things are necessary in order to maintain a safe environment for everyone. So that's kind of where we ended up.
And did a great job. And the permit document, I think, looks great too.
Thank you, John. John, do you know what time in the mornings people can go to get the permit?
It's an interesting question. I believe they can go any time that it opens up. They can't go beyond 3 o'clock. So as soon as the police station is open, that's interesting. Could you get there at 1 a.m.? I really don't know. Well, I say no. They're obviously open, so I don't know. I would, but yes, I don't know.
And I would think they'd have to, I don't know exactly what time they get the fire risk assessment that day that they're using to determine whether that's a weather day that is consistent with having fires.
That's an interesting thought. So,
Yeah.
But I don't know a minimum time. I don't know when it's to start, to answer your question.
Any other questions, Dave, or anybody? First of all, any other questions for Paul?
I was just going to say the town sent out a notice today or yesterday, that explained the whole system. I'm just looking to see whether there's a time on it. And it doesn't seem to say when you can pick this up.
Yeah,
Recording in progress.
the permit says definitely not after 3 o'clock.
It used to be 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Who remembers?
I don't believe it was stated on the permit.
No, but they did not accept any application until, because the fire marshal has to say today's a go day, and that happens at a certain time. I think it was 9 o'clock, but I'm not positive.
I don't know.
I don't know either. No. Okay. Anything else from anybody on the committee?
Nope.
Okay. Dave, do we have any? Okay.
Sorry, I didn't realize I muted myself. So a number of years ago, I was one of those guys that ended up paying $50. So I do appreciate you upping that ante. I'm just curious, just because of the time, either it takes somebody at the police station or for the police to walk the beach up to 10 o'clock at night, if that's what the ordinance still remains at. Had you considered at all like a minimal $5, $10, $15 fee?
No, yeah, I don't know the town could really legally collect that, to be honest with you. But one thing to answer some of your concern is that what we have also done is to shift the responsibility to the CSOs to inspect the fire sites the next morning. That was on the shoulders of the police, which probably wasn't the best use of their time. So the CSOs are going to relieve that. But the police will still be active inspecting the fire sites the evening of.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, John. Anybody else, Dave? Okay. Good. So let's move on to the next agenda item, which is Dinghy Point. You may recall that there were some issues raised. I think first went directly to the town about unauthorized items being left at Dinghy Point. The Board of Selectmen asked us for some input on that, and we replied at one of our June meeting, I think perhaps, or even before that, that we didn't see a major problem, but we would keep an eye on it. And I've heard, firstly, my own personal observation, because since this issue has come up, I've made it a point to walk that direction when I come onto the beach and check it out, was that there did not seem to be any real problem, that all we basically saw there were up to 8 or 9 dinghies, maybe a couple of kayaks nestled between them, or a canoe. For all I know, that's what some of the mooring owners are used to get out to their ships or their boats. I didn't see much in the way of overnight storage of any beach equipment that didn't fall into the category of what Dinghy Point has traditionally been used for. And Chief Sanford did comment that, again, the CSOs are keeping an eye on that as they do their morning patrols and seeing what's there. And they don't see any problem beyond what, has traditionally been left at Dinghy Point. So if they see anything like floats or beach chairs or beach equipment or stuff like that, they will be tagging it. So I think Dinghy Point so far this summer is really not an issue.
Kate, I agree with you. I walk daily and I've seen nothing but boats there.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yep. Okay, so I think we can hopefully put Dinghy Point to rest, that issue to rest for now. So the next issue, well, again, I guess, Dave, do I need to check with you to see if there's anybody in the public that wants to comment? Good, okay. Item 7, the kayak storage. There certainly are a lot of them. And thank you to the Kennebunkport Conservation Trust and the gentleman who donated the actual materials. And those kayak racks have been very helpful. There are 9 back in place as usual this summer. Thanks to John and all of his team for getting them put in place. And they seem to be well used. there was certainly a problem with kayak storage at the west end, and Carol has been working with people from Rachel Carson, because basically most of the kayaks were being dumped up on what is actually Rachel Carson land, and had caused a considerable loss of the dune grass in that area. Carol, do you have any input on what it's looking like this, Carol? Yeah, you're there. This summer?
You're muted, Carol.
Yeah, you are.
I just don't want you to hear the dogs barking all the time. Sorry. Where we put up stake and twine on the right of way, in the town's right of way, I have not found any incident at all. There is one dinghy on the Rachel Carson's property, and I have called them, and they asked me to, and as I said I would, and I don't know what they have done about that. But where we had 15 kayaks there last year, we have certainly helped solve that problem so far this year.
Which is good.
Blessing for the health of the grass. I mean, we need to
I hope so.
regrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, elsewhere along the beach, there are kayaks stored by people who are, presumably there are people who are beach use agreement signatories who have a right to store their beach equipment or their kayaks in their 25-foot reserve area. I think we've asked or gotten the word out, if you're doing that, please try to store them horizontally to the water so they take up as little of the beach, because people still do have a right to walk across those areas. And so far, as I walk up and down the beach, I think people are being very cooperative on that. Okay. That's all I have to offer on kayak storage, unless somebody else has any input. And Jen, I never see, you seem to have disappeared from my little boxes. Are you waving your hand? I hope.
No.
Nope. Okay, great. Any public comments? I like that. Okay. All right. Let's move on to subcommittee reports. We now are trying to do more of our work within the format of subcommittees. And I'll speak briefly to the communications subcommittee, which at this point I believe consists of me, Carol, Joanne, and we've got two volunteers, if you will, from the community, Fred Stafford, who has a lot of experience in marketing and communication, signage, et cetera, and Audrey Lakin, who has been basically administering the Friends of Goose Rocks Beach Facebook page. So one of the things we know we've had on our agenda, but because we got sidetracked in other issues last year, such as the dog ordinance, we did not really move as far along as we wanted on the issue of signage pollution at the beach. There's so many different kinds and sizes and shapes and looks of sizes that we have there. And so that's very much a high priority for this coming year. And the communications committee, that group will be meeting to talk about that, and certainly welcome other volunteers if they have input they'd like to bring in, or time and talent. And then the other thing that I'm proposing we do is, and I've talked with Lori Smith about this, and she thinks it sounds like a good idea too. The Beach Advisory Committee has been around for 9 years now, and we've had various ways of communication that have had various purposes, and as well as technology has changed and the town's website perhaps has expanded. So overall, I think among the sort of priorities or tasks for the communications subcommittee, I would extend that to not just the signage at the beach, but overall look at how we communicate with the public. How do we use the Facebook page? How do we use Constant Contact? What is there on the town's website that people could link up with? We also have other things that are not strictly BAC ways of communicating, but like the GRB Gatherings newsletter that reaches a lot of people. So see where we have overlap, see whether we need that overlap. I think that's a good time as BAC is approaching its next year 10th anniversary to take a look at. And that's all I have for the communications subcommittee report, unless we haven't got any, hands-on stuff done yet. We look forward to starting to meet either before the end of the summer or certainly in the fall. Anybody else on the committee want to comment on that?
I do think some decisions have to be made. There's, the information's going out in a lot of different ways, which is good because not everybody tunes into one way or the other. As far as the constant contact, I end up putting that out. And so far, other than the really occasional notice, it's used as notice of the committee meeting.
Mhm.
Does it expand or stay that, or do we get rid of it? I don't know.
And you mentioned too that only about 60% of the people on the
Right.
list even
There's about 570 messages that go out, and on any given time I send it out, only 60% are even opened. 40% of that go right, I'm sure, in the delete box of people, which is fine. I add people as they ask. I delete people as they ask, and they do that through the email, and Carol sends it on to me.
60% is pretty good. There'd be a lot of people who,
Is it pretty
Yeah.
good? 60%?
Yeah. It's not bad at all.
Huge, actually.
Yeah. And the Facebook page has really grown in friends, I guess you call it. I think we've got the latest information I got from Audrey today said it looks like somewhere over 3,000 people are seeing, or friends that can access it. And in general, looking at, for example, when she put out the post about the wheelchair, I mean, it depends on, what's being posted, but you definitely have anywhere between, I think, 800 to 1,200 people who will reach the particular post that she's putting up there. So that's, and that has grown. Certainly, it was a great idea to start that, thanks to, the people who were involved, like Meg and Katie and Paul, and people who were involved in figuring out communications for the BAC in its infancy. And that certainly has been, I think, a very much appreciated form of communication. So we'll work on stuff like that and try and come back to you in the fall with a report on both the beach signage and the possible communications, modes of communication. And it would help, however, with all due respect to maybe some of the community volunteers we have. Certainly, I don't mean to insult anybody, Joanne or Carol, but I have to admit for myself, it would be really nice if we had somebody who was very technologically capable or knowledgeable as a volunteer on that group.
Well, then I think my daughter would be my subcommittee, because when constant contact confuses me, the call goes out to her and she talks me through it. So,
We probably do have to look for younger volunteers.
Yep. So anyway, I guess we could list her as a subcommittee member.
Works for me.
Works for me too.
Okay. Again, Dave, any input from anybody? Good. Okay, let's move on to the Natural Resources Subcommittee, and I am basically going to turn that over to Paul Hogan, who is the chair of that subcommittee.
Hi, we did, subcommittee met last week. Jen, John, myself, and Kyle joined us, but not as a committee member. And we had 2 volunteers from the community who have been on it in the past and asked to be on it again. That's Mary Ellen LeMay and John Crowder. Both have very interesting backgrounds related to the topic. But first, before I tell you about the meeting, why don't we let Carol do the Plover report?
Okay. This is for the piping plovers. As of July 15th, 2021, Goose Rocks Beach has had 9 breeding pairs. Once again, we had piping plovers nests from the east end to the west end of the beach. There are no active nests at this time.
Oh.
There were 12 nest attempts. 4 were predated, but 8 hatched. There are now 10 chicks running all over the beach that are due to fledge sometime between July 21st and August 2nd. We have already had 12 piping plovers fledge, which means start to fly at Goose Rocks Beach. And that's a win. A fledge is a win in the Maine Audubon language. Hopefully all 10 chicks will fledge to bring us to 22 fledglings, a great year for piping plovers at Goose Rocks Beach. Well done, all residents, renters, visitors, cat and dog owners, and lovers of Goose Rocks Beach. This is the best we have done in a long time, well over a decade, maybe two. Piping plovers are now migrating, and you will probably see many as they pass through Goose Rocks Beach heading south. Other migratory birds will start their journey south soon. It's fun to watch them as they visit our beach to rest and feed. If you're interested in more data, the state of Maine has had 121 breeding pairs. There are still 85 chicks on the beach, and they have 132 fledged. Ogunquit has 16 chicks on the beach and has fledged 16. Wells has 2 chicks on the beach and has fledged 11. Old Orchard Beach has no chicks and has fledged only 5. Phippsburg area has also had a very good year. You may note that in our area of Maine, we are right behind Ogunquit, which is not bad. We did very well.
Yeah.
So how are we doing compared to last year? In the state of Maine in 2020, there were 98 pairs of plovers compared to 121 this year. They fledged 199 chicks compared to a possible 217 this year, and 2020 was a record year. We have a very good chance of having another record year. At Goose Rocks Beach in 2020, we had 7 nests attempted compared to 12 this year. 1 was abandoned, 2 were predated, but 5 hatched. We had 11 fledglings compared to the 12 fledglings so far, and a possible 10 more for us this year. Lease turns. Maine Audubon reports that we have approximately 12 active nesting pairs of lease turns on the Batson River end of Goose Rocks Beach. They have not done an official count of the chicks and fledglings. They are very difficult to do. Last year, we had no lease turn chicks. I promise that after the piping plovers have left, I will ask the question to Maine Audubon and report back to everyone, when is an endangered bird no longer classified as endangered or threatened? Carol Sherman, piping plover monitor at Goose Rocks Beach.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome, Joanne.
Thanks.
Okay, one comment to make there. I'm delighted about the number, and I even have managed to see a couple of chicks, and I can never find them really running around. And the one thing that kind of concerns me, I hadn't thought about this being a danger to them until somebody, I think you, Carol, posted a picture from another one of the beaches here of, how we have a prohibition about leaving big holes in the sand when you leave? Well, let me tell you, because I often walk my dogs at 6 or later, that's not being followed at all. I think most people think, oh, well, the tide will take care of it for me. Big holes down there. And apparently one of the dangers to these poor little tiny chicks who have little tiny wings, I mean, I don't know how those ever fledge. I don't know how they grow big enough so they can actually fly with those things, is they fall, if they tumble into one of those holes, they literally
It's
can't.
all over.
That's all over.
That's right.
I don't know what the answer is to try and get people to just do something as simple as filling in a hole.
I don't know.
I
But
think
you're
we
right.
go back to the respect issue with that, Kate.
Yep, exactly.
And inform people that, it truly is an issue, not just for chicks, but for people walking, particularly at night. Fill your holes.
Yeah.
You have to educate folks, yeah.
Do the community service people, as they're walking, mention that to people, in an education?
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
nice hole, please fill it, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the best way.
yeah.
Okay, so back to the meeting that we had last week. We talked about a number of issues and a number of action items. The first was, in light of some debate this spring as to where we should do the stake and twine, we were going to try to put together some kind of a policy statement looking at best practices from other sources, other beaches, other states even, to see what the experts say we should be doing. So we would hopefully come back to you with something on that. And also, in that, we often get questions as we're staking from homeowners who come down to see what's up, and they ask questions about things that happen. What can I do after a storm? What can I do? Am I allowed to plant grass? Things like that. So I think it would be helpful to the community if we put something together and then had it on our website or, someplace that we can refer people to. because currently you really have to dig through the state website and DEP, and you have to put a lot of time to find the answers. So if we can make it simpler, that would be nice. We had seen something that the town had money to spend from the feds as COVID relief. And one suggestion that someone made at the committee, and John was going to work on drafting a short recommendation to the town that could come from this committee, that perhaps the money was like 350 grand, something like that I saw. But that perhaps some of the money could be used in some way to help on the clean water issues that we have, either making a loan fund available for people who had bad septics but couldn't afford to replace them, or extending sewer lines, or doing studies about that. So John was going to come back. I don't know what the time frame from the town. I think they have a fair amount of time, but health and public safety were among the items that you could spend money on, that we've read in the papers. Tracking water quality with the Maine Healthy Beaches. John has been working on a project which he described to us, and hopefully after next fall we might have a better resource available, an easy way for people to check on water quality issues. The data has now been organized in a way that's great, but it needs a front end built on it. John worked with UNE students to have something specific. And the state had a website that they tried to bid out, and it's now in flux. So if we could do something locally, that would be helpful. We did get a letter this week about asking about water quality, and if we had a place to direct them easily, that might be helpful to check it in real time. We talked about a speaker for August, and John suggested that we get someone from the Kennebunkport Climate Initiative, and he reached out to somebody, and they said yes. So we can either talk about that right now, or
Why don't we move that and leave that until we get to
the end.
talking about under the August meeting and formats and all that sort of stuff.
Another educational, we've worked on invasive plants, and that's often a question from volunteers who come, and people sometimes volunteer to find out about it, what they can do on their properties, and what we can do on the beach properties on invasive species. So we talked about a number of ideas on how to get that information out there. We talked about the Facebook page, and as I was looking back through the minutes from long ago, the Facebook page was started by the Natural Resources Subcommittee as a way to try to get information about sand dollars out, and a number of pieces were developed over the years, and I was going to reach out to Audrey. We haven't done that lately. Carol had done it in the past, developed different educational items about, living species and invasives, or the other side of that. What don't we want around? It's kind of nice to know you can go pick those green crabs and not feel guilty about it, because they're very invasive. So I have to talk to Audrey to see if we can dig out that old stuff, to see if we could publish it on a regular basis over, during the season when people are here. The other suggestion that came up was to use the Constant Contact. Mary Ellen LeMay, because of she works on a conservation committee in another state, and she has a job related to this, and she has a lot of packaged stuff related to the things living at our beach and what we need to protect and what we should be concerned about. So we talked about using Constant Contact for that. So I think in connection with your communications discussion in the fall, I think we should visit that and see if that's one way we should be using it, since it does have so many people who subscribe to it. That was about it.
It looks great.
And we scheduled a meeting in August. John, do you remember the date? I don't have my calendar.
Yeah,
11th,
it's August 2nd, I believe.
2nd?
Yeah.
No, that's the,
Oh, it's the 11th or
Say
something.
at the
like that.
11th. Yeah.
I think it's the 11th for natural resources. But we will send out a notice since we have 3 members of this committee on that committee. We do send out a public notice. If you want to receive a public notice of the beach meetings or of the subcommittee meetings, you go to the town's website, and at the bottom it says e-alerts. It's a little button, round button, and you click that, and you can choose any committee that you'd like to get information from.
Okay.
Hi, yeah, Jen.
John, I know I had somebody the other day asking me about what's being done about the water quality, and I know that this has been addressed before, but there are probably members of the public who are listening right now who may not know. You know, what is there anything being done about the problem particularly at the rivers? You know, when they're low tide and the rain, and is there anything that can be done?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we are monitoring it. That's a different question. Obviously, we need to understand it better in terms of what is causing the pollution. What we test for are fecal indicator bacteria. So it's not the things that make you sick. It's rather things that can associate with things that make you sick. But unfortunately, there are a lot of other things that are not associated necessarily with things that would make you sick that can increase the fecal indicator of bacteria. So the concern is the levels are high. When are they high? And to have people know that so they can avoid swimming there, whether or not this condition may actually make you ill. We are on tidal rivers. Those rivers are fed by storm systems that take, in heavy rains, take dog waste, take all kinds of chemicals and everything off of our lawns and wash them through those tidal rivers. So we post whenever there have been heavy rains to warn people that that could be the case. These rivers tend to, with the fluctuation in tides, you have your neap tides, you have your very high spring tides. Those king tides will flush out a lot of what has been collecting in the backwater of these rivers, which is often just animal waste and things that actually grow. These fecal indicator bacteria will grow in the vegetation and will give you a false positive to say there's a lot of fecal matter when there really isn't. So there are a lot of things that are weighing into this that we're still trying to fully understand. But what we know is that if there is a very large throw in the tide, if you have a king tide, don't swim in the rivers at low tide. And for that reason, we have posted that. Don't swim in the rivers at low tide. And if there's been a heavy rainfall and a very high tide together, that can swing out and get onto the main beach, onto the east end. So we post again, if there's been a heavy rainfall, you know, it's wise to keep that in mind. If you're particularly concerned, don't swim in the main beach. There's never a time I wouldn't swim on the main beach, but this is for folks that want to take that extra level of caution. I don't think I let my kids swim in the rivers at low tide anymore. I did it as a kid all the time, and there's nothing wrong with me, right? So it's not. So I don't know. It's kind of where we are. I probably didn't answer your question, but
No, that was helpful. I just thought it'd be helpful to kind of let the public know.
Jen, I would add, and it brings up a good point. The state did major testing, you know, with their money back in like 2006, and then last year and the year before it was repeated. The state, out of the ordinary testing, including testing for DNA, so you'd find out what it was, whose DNA was it, including testing for soap products. That if you're seeing soap products and optimizing these brighteners, then you know it's coming from people's septics. And if you're seeing that in the water, then you're guessing what else is coming from septics. I think, and so there were a lot of outcomes from that. I think it would be a good idea, John, if we get that report. It came out like in January or February. it's voluminous, but we could post it on the beach committee page. I think that would be helpful to folks.
Yeah,
Because
it's voluminous, but it's not very conclusive.
No, but it has a
So,
good executive summary, which is in English, which I understood.
Yeah.
And I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
The other thing is that if you go to the town website and hit the e-alert buttons, you can click the public health notices, and that's where you would get. So we test on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So by midday Wednesday, we know if there was a problem on Tuesday, and Allison, the town health officer, immediately posts it. So anyone who gets that email doesn't have to go looking for a sign. They'll get it right into their email. So you could look at it on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. They also, if there's a rain, you don't need to look at your email. If you see a lot of rain, then you can assume they've sent out a notice saying that because of 1 inch of rainfall or more, they're issuing a precautionary notice.
Joanne, did you have your hand up?
No, I'm just scudgy.
Okay. The one thing I'll comment on, we did have an inquiry from, or comments from members of the public recently when we did, for a variety of reasons, even though we had a very rainy 4th of July weekend, the water quality issues were not posted on the signs. That's certainly we're aware of that, and that'll being dealt with so it won't happen again. Because we do put, I know there are these other wonderful places where people can go and check results, but since we put signs up at the beach, people tend to say, oh, that's where I should find it out. Members who are just coming to use the beach. So that's being taken care of.
Well, it's something that needs to be addressed. I think we need to be cognizant that right now there's one individual that really can't be on 24/7. So we do need to find a way to distribute that responsibility responsibly, so that those signs are posted in a timely manner.
Yeah. Back to communication
Right.
as well. So, anybody else on the committee have any comment? Nope. I'm missing somebody. Sorry, if I forget somebody, please tell me, because I only have like 6 boxes across the top. Obviously, I'm missing one of you. Okay. Paul, thanks very much for that report, and John and Jen for all your work on that. And look forward to. I think it's interesting, particularly the ideas about, which ties in with the communication questions we're looking at about how to get interesting and pertinent information out to people. I think it's going to be kind of an exciting prospect. All right. Traffic and safety. I don't know that we haven't. Barry, where are you?
I'm here.
You're the one person, sorry, that fell off the edge of my screen.
So Kate, all I'll say is I started to speak to a few of the neighbors here on Kings Highway just to get some ideas and what's really on people's minds. I don't yet have anything official to report based on that, but I would like to invite, if there's any members of the community at large that would like to volunteer and work with me on that, to please get in touch. I would like to get more and more ideas. I think it's obviously a critical item that we've got to address.
Thank you. And I do, I think Barry's aware of this, most of us, and that there was a suggestion from somebody in the community or an inquiry or concern about the heavy foot traffic, et cetera, at particularly at the Edgewood area. And just in general, that in the summertime, we have a lot of traffic, both vehicular traffic, bicycle traffic, pedestrians up and down Kings Highway. And that person was inquiring whether we could put speed bumps on Kings Highway the same way they exist on New Bedford Road. And to answer that, it's not definitely our call. That inquiry or that suggestion has been passed on to the town manager, and they will look into it. I don't even think it's something that can be decided at the town level, as I recall, with the New Bedford issue, both speed level on New Bedford and I think the speed bumps. I think the state has some input on that too. So again, we don't have an answer for you tonight, but it's certainly a point well taken that as any one of us who tries to drive along Kings Highway in the height of the summer knows, better plan on crawling along, hopefully at a very slow speed. Paul?
Yeah, I've been clocking my time and other people's time since this came up. And, I don't think speed along that stretch is the problem. I go 12 to like 18 miles an hour. Some people go faster, but most people can't because there isn't space to safely go fast.
Yep.
That's my observation.
It's interesting, and one of the comments that I did get back, and it resonated with me, was people complaining about the landscapers and the construction companies parking right on the road, and especially on the west end where there really isn't a lot of room. And I just know that when I'm driving and you've got 2 or 3 of these big trucks that are just parking randomly instead of using a driveway and trying to make it more accessible, it certainly does present a problem. So those are the things that we're hopefully going to come up with some recommendations.
Great. Good. Any other comments from the committee? Anybody out there, Paul? Dave, sorry.
Kate, I want.
Wait a minute. Joanne?
Hi.
Hi.
Someone had mentioned rather than speed bumps, maybe to highlight or make more visible the walkways that are across from every public access all down Kings Highway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. By the general store at the end of Dyke Road, there's a cone in the middle. I don't think seriously there'd be room to put a cone in the middle of Kings Highway because I don't think anyone could get around it, but I think it was an excellent idea. Some of the walkways in town and all have been painted fabulous, wonderful, bright colors. Would that make people more apt to use those rather than just dart across the street anywhere? I don't know. I think that's something worth looking at as far as safety.
I agree. I noticed today, I thought about that as I was driving down Kings Highway and thinking, those walkways are getting a little
Hated.
They are.
a lot.
They are.
Well, I love the idea of having them brightly colored, but that's something we'll pass on or suggest to the town or recommend. I don't know that we need to make it a formal motion at this point, but let's just see. My guess is whether they'll be able to get it done for this summer, but I think it's a great idea going forward. So, okay. Any input from the community? Okay.
Yep, I was looking for the unmute. I think Paul's idea and comment about you can't possibly drive fast down Kings Highway, and those speed bumps are expensive, and I'm sure a pain in the neck for the lawn mowing people or the police or anybody else who is driving down the street. I just wanted to second his thought that people do drive pretty slowly down that street, and some of the newest suggestions that you just came up with, I would love to see.
Yep. Good. Thanks, Joni.
You're welcome.
We need to identify name and address.
I think she did already.
On Wildwood. Just a brief comment about transportation. We have so many different vehicles coming and going on the beach. The big trucks that deliver to the tides. I mean, they're so big that they can't turn around, and when they're coming in front and then turning on one of the side streets on either side of the tides, I mean, it's impossible. But there are also bicyclists. We were trying to leave the beach the other day, and there were 3 bicycles riding all next to each other, so we couldn't go around them. And once we got to the general store, there were 2 more coming from the other direction, again, not single file. So I think it's not just the construction, although they don't help, but we have just multiple issues around transportation and the kinds of vehicles that come and go from this beach on very narrow roads. So I just throw that out there as something we've discussed in our family as being an issue. And when people unload their cars, they leave their strollers and children, everything else out in the middle of the road. So that slows it down as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, 20 years ago, it was a big event if somebody got a package delivered at Goose Rocks. Now their trucks are there 90 times a day.
Right.
Big trucks.
You know, if Amazon would just convert to those drones, it would be so much better. Just kidding.
And the trucks that are coming through, Paul, in that regard, is things like FedEx and people and UPS
Yeah, that's what I'm.
that have to move. They're on delivery schedules, and boy, are they going to move. And that's partially because there are more people here, and more people here working from here too. Need to get that stuff. It's. I don't think the Traffic and Safety Committee will be bored. I think we've got issues that are there, and I second Barry's suggestion. If anybody out there has any expertise in this area or even just interest, please get in touch with us, because we certainly welcome members of the community to offer their time and talent for this effort.
I think to Ann's point too, along Dyke Road, the path they put in for walkers and bikes, very few people actually use it. They're on both sides of the road, and that makes it very difficult to get by as well.
Yep.
And if they're going to deliver packages by drones, we're going to have to lift the drone ban.
Okay. Anything else on that subject? Okay, good. All right, let's move on to the August meeting. All right, as we all know, as we're doing right now, we've been meeting by Zoom for the last year and a half, basically. And now with the end of the state of emergency that was lifted by the governor as of June 30th, that leaves 30 days beyond that town boards and committees can continue to meet on Zoom, but after that point, they're supposed to go back to in-person meeting. Legislation was passed by the state that alters that a little bit, allows a little bit more wiggle room there, that in fact, towns may use Zoom meetings in certain contexts. And it's supposed to, if it is allowed for a member of a town board or committee to participate by Zoom. Remember in the past, you might have been able to participate by computer or Zoom once it was invented, but committee members were not allowed to vote. That had to be done in person. This would alter that, this legislation would alter that somewhat by saying a committee member, board member, if they have to be away, and there are some, how that is going to be interpreted. There are some, for instances, given, I believe, in the legislation, such as for medical reasons or business travel or whatever, that in fact they could participate by Zoom, and including participating means by voting, which has not been allowed in the past. If that's allowed, however, the town first of all has to adopt a policy on this issue, accepting that kind of policy. And in addition, if Zoom is available to a member of the committee, then there has to be Zoom available to members of the public. Now, I discussed it with Lori Smith, the town manager, today. Obviously, we are going forward in August with an in-person meeting, which we'll discuss a little bit more. But the question of Zoom going forward in any format is certainly very pertinent to those of us here, or the members of the community here at the beach, since so many of us in the past and presently still perhaps live elsewhere while still owning property here at the beach, or even if you don't own property, you're interested perhaps in what's going on here, but you don't live here. Right now, the meetings before this new legislation, they are broadcast on public access television, which is nice, but it doesn't, if you live outside the public access area, you can't get that television. You can't get a real time and watch the committee meeting real time. It is also apparently broadcast on YouTube. Again, neither of those really allow for the communication back to the committee, such as we've had with many people offering comments or asking questions. And then in addition, of course, Dave is also videoing this to go on so we have the video saved on the town website so people can watch the meetings after the fact. Lori and the town staff are looking very heavily into how can we manage this technologically? How can we make it work? If in addition to, there's a significant difference apparently, and Dave, maybe, I don't understand all the technology, but having an in-person meeting that has to be set up electronically, as well as the three things, Zoom, YouTube, videoing, and four things, television, adds a level of difficulty that they haven't got an exact answer for yet. They have been checking with other towns to find out how they're going to handle it, comparable towns to us. They have been talking with a couple of different consultants to find out how this might work. And Laurie told me that she has another meeting with yet another consultant tomorrow morning that she's hoping, that says that they have the solutions, and she's hoping they will be able to come up with them. The selectmen have a meeting. They've scheduled a second July meeting, which they originally didn't intend to have, on this coming Thursday. And the information, the link, et cetera, is already out there. And this is one of the two topics they really are going to be discussing there. They will be discussing whether to adopt the policy that's needed, and also how can this work mechanically. So with that in mind, it's certainly something we're going to keep on top of. We've certainly made known to the town how important we think having a Zoom capability is, both for our committee members, some of whom are not here year-round full-time, as well as for the members of the public of our community who are often not here, and have found it really, really helpful to be able to operate on Zoom, where you can not only watch the meeting real time, but you can ask questions, offer comments. But let's talk about the August meeting specifically. We have set it up on Monday, August 16th at 6 p.m. And it is going to be an in-person meeting, yay, for the first time in like almost 18 months. It will be held as we've traditionally done with our summer BAC meetings. It will be held at the Goose Rocks Beach Firehouse. I've already talked with Noel Graydon, and we're good for that. And I think we'll talk about the format there too. I think the suggestions in the past, we have traditionally had speakers for many years. I think that that's a good idea, and I like the idea of the one that John and Paul have talked about in this particular timeframe. The one concern I have is my recollection from the last couple of summer meetings that we had before, COVID hit us, of course, last year. We didn't have any. Was that while we had speakers scheduled, we also had so many people attending, enjoying the opportunity to ask questions and offer comments. So that part of, quote, the business part of the meeting took up quite a bit of time, and we almost had trouble fitting the speaker in. We've had a lot of people listening tonight. I'm delighted, and offering comments and questions. And I think that I have no reason to think that the first time we come back to in-person meetings that we won't have a similar situation, that a lot of people want a chance to offer comments, ask questions, whatever. So with that in mind, John made a good suggestion, which was that perhaps we do the speaker first. And if we do that, then I would suggest, that does solve the problem of running out of time to have the speaker. But on the flip side, I don't want to run out of time to have members of the community have a chance to feel that they've been heard, they've been able to ask whatever questions they have. I think that's important in our first come together in this, in-person meeting. So if we're going to go ahead with the speaker, I would be certainly willing to go along with have the speaker first, but I would like to, looking at, we're now at about 7:30. We've had a lot of input and comment and discussion. So I would suggest that we limit the speaker, if the speaker can limit him or herself, including Q&A time, to 30 minutes. I would be fine with that. And go first, and then again, we'll probably have to do something as we've done in the past, is we want to not make the speaker be part of the, quote, meeting, so that Tricia and whoever's doing the minutes doesn't have to do minutes of everything that the speaker said, because it's really not, I don't think, part of the meeting. But we can work that out of opening it, adjourning it, going to the speaker, reopening it, and then going for the business part of the meeting. How does that sound to anybody or everybody?
I think one of the issues, not last summer, but the summer before, is there was a couple of very hot issues
Right.
that people had strong feelings and emotions about. I don't see that for this August, so that may shorten the meeting a little more,
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, I've been impressed with the number of comments and questions we've gotten, even on areas that I didn't really think necessarily were going to. So, I love the fact that the community is out there and is listening and is interested and wants to. So, I still would like to aim to keep it to 30 minutes if we go with the speaker, and if it goes a little bit over, fine. If we don't have a big turnout, even fine. We figure we don't. I think most people probably will feel pretty comfortable about coming to the firehouse. But, who knows for sure? Paul, sorry.
What about doing 30 minutes of that, then a quick 30-minute business meeting, and then do the public portion last? Which, if it tends to go on and on, then we can say at 7:30, do you want to keep going or do you want to stop? As opposed to getting sort of side railed by issues which are not on the agenda, let's say, or might be related to the agenda, or was something that was on 2 months ago. But because it may be people's first chance to talk in public, although obviously we've had no shortage of comments in our Zoom meetings. And many committees report they get much more participation on Zoom than.
Exactly. I really think this is going to be less participation than more, to be honest with you, but.
It might be.
We'll see what happens.
It's a lot easier to talk when you don't have to stand up in front of people.
Darn right. But I Paul's right on. We'd have the presentation for 30 minutes. We'd have our business meeting that would bring up the issues, and then we'd have a discussion after that. That certainly sounds right to me.
When you say discussion after that,
Public comments.
And the public comments, just
Public comments.
Oh, okay.
That way we get through the business meeting. We can try to schedule our agenda so that we're 30 minutes and not 50 minutes,
right?
In terms of presentations or topics, so that we have time for, public participation on other questions.
Exactly.
Well, why don't we do put together an agenda, go ahead with the speaker as you planned at the KCI. Is that what it is? Speaker?
Yes. Yeah. Avon Park Climate Initiative.
Yeah, and see if we can aim it for 30 minutes, and then as we get that evening, if we look like we have fewer and fewer hot button items that people might want to discuss, or fewer and fewer people that actually show up, then we can just kind of ask the speaker if they want to, expand further or allow more time for Q&A or whatever.
Yeah, we'll probably have to cut off the Q&A. That will obviously be so, right? I mean, it'll be the talk, and then if we want to hold it to 30 minutes, then we can see how that would go.
Yeah.
I have a feeling there's going to be some interest in this. If my understanding is that we're going to hear a little bit about what the future of Goose Rocks Beach holds, I would think people ought to be interested in what's going to be talked about and the timing thereof. So, yep.
Okay, so we're agreed on how we'll speaker first. We will go with a speaker. Speaker will go first. We'll try to, discuss them, asking them to sort of limit themselves to 30 minutes, no more than 20 to 30 but 30 hopefully total. Although we can allow, if it looks like we a whole lot more interest in that and not a whole lot of other issues that people look like they want or are dying to discuss, we'll go a little bit longer, go maybe 45 minutes total. We just want to have it not go, we don't want to be there all evening, and the firehouse would like us to be out of there at a certain point. So, that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Yes.
Right.
And Mhm. Right. Right. Good.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. But no, I forgot to mention that. And I know that that's the way it's been done in the past before Zoom even became a possibility. So that it's trading off technological capability for convenience of being closer to the beach where people, hopefully will come more easily than going over to the firehouse. So absolutely. John, can you put together, if you haven't already, a description of what the speaker will be and the topic so that we can put it together for, public, the public notice?
I will do that. I'll be in touch with them to get, when do you need that by, just so that they would.
Well, it's August 16th, so let's say by maybe early August, so that we can put together the agenda.
Before the end of July.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, I'll want to put that out with the meeting notice with the constant contact.
Yeah.
Is that time frame still good for you, end of July?
Yeah, if it's the 16th, 10 days to 2 weeks is when I put it out.
Good, got it.
Yeah, great. Is there any other business that anybody wants to bring up?
No.
Oh, wait a minute, Carol.
I just had one thought. I thought maybe John could talk about the recycle and trash. We did have a comment from the town. I thought maybe we could talk about that.
That's a good thought.
Yeah. And, well, we had a comment about the timing of the trash. I don't have a definitive of whether that is a suggestion or a law, but I think it's a pretty strong suggestion to please have your trash out early in the morning and not after 3 p.m. the day, or not before 3 p.m. the day before. In terms of the contamination, we did get dinged last run. We have to see what the second, but we paid a contamination fee because there were 10 full plastic bags.
Ouch.
In the past, we have been dinged because of plastic bags, empty plastic bags that people have been from Kroger or what have you. And the ban now on plastic is going to help for local source, people that come and bring plastic from the outside, maybe not as much. But there were, for the first time, noted in our contamination stream, full plastic bags. So I think what this probably is are people who are in, and gosh, I would have done this. You're in the rental, you collect your recyclables in a plastic bag, then you take that plastic bag out and you dump it in the recycling bin. You just can't do that. And we haven't stated that clearly enough to the folks in the rentals. So that's what they need to do, is just you can take the contents of the bag dump it in the bin and put the bag in the trash. So
Or use it again.
or use it again,
Yes.
even better. But it's all messy. But that's the learning curve that, and so we're struggling with what to do.
John,
We-
is that information given out by the realtors?
It is. It says no plastic bags. It doesn't say don't put your recycling in a plastic bag and then put it in the. It's that kind of thing where we got to help people think about it because
Yeah.
it's certainly what I would have done. I'm
Think
sure
how they
what I
would do
have
that.
done in the past.
Yeah.
And it is rather unique to our single stream recycling that we can't take plastic bags. So I don't know if that. But anyway, it's an issue.
The other problems we have, John and I are both on the recycling committee, so this is how we know this stuff.
Yeah.
We get styrofoam from packaging, and that can't be in recycling. That should go in your garbage. And the other thing is all of these Amazon small, the things that go inside the package, the plastic inside a package, that can't go. Also, all these soft, bubble wrapped sort of, they look like paper on the outside, but they've glued, plastic on the inside. That cannot go in the recycling either.
Padded envelopes, the padded envelopes you get for things shipped to you and cannot be recycled.
There's a new state law which just coming into effect, and in a year or two, that problem should be solved in Maine because they're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So money always controls.
But those are things that have been called out to us as the contaminants in the recycling. Padded envelopes, plastic bags, now full plastic bags, styrofoam, clothing, anything that would tangle in the gears of the sorting equipment.
Right.
But so we're struggling with how to get that message into the rental units so people are aware, and that's our challenge.
Yeah, and of course, part of the problem now is we have more and more rental units that are not serviced by any of the local realtors.
Yeah.
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 Paul, did you have something else you wanted to add?
I think I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Yeah. Okay, everybody in favor? See all those hands waving. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Hey, guys.
Good night.
Blessings all.